Hello and welcome to today's episode in a nutshell, which is going to be about the topic that we said we would never talk about, but when it comes to AI, especially generative AI, we can't ignore, and that's going to be politics. I'm Andrew, and this is Chris, and we're going to be talking about politics today. And what you're going to find, the reason why we're talking about it today is I remember in 2008, when Obama was about to become the president, it was all about the social media election. 2008 was all about the social media elections. And 2016, I don't know if you remember, it was all about Cambridge Analytica, and it was the data election. 2024, I have absolutely no doubt, and Chris as well has no doubt, that it's all going to be about the AI elections. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Chris? Why do you feel that it's going to go that way?
Well, it's undoubtable that there's already hundreds of thousands more people with the ability to make art through platforms like Midjourney and DALL-E and other things, whereas we had a closed community of Photoshop users at an expert level. Now we have millions more people that are capable of doing propaganda, essentially, when it's being used for politics. When you're making art for other means like marketing and business development, it seems fair game. But when it's being used towards politics, it seems like it's, got an agenda. So it feels like with all of that extra art out there, it's going to be steered more and more towards 2024 election, the closer we get to it.
Exactly. And I think that this is going to be, you're talking about user-generated content, but I also feel that you're going to get a lot of dirty tricks from politicians and politician parties. I was reading something the other day, and it was DeSantis, this pack that he's part of uses AI-generated voice. So it's going to be like the generative AI voice, and they were cloning Trump's voice. And it was in an ad attack as well. So it wasn't even like something they just kind of slick organically on social media. This was an ad attack. And I'm just thinking this was probably about a year before the elections, and they're not even really campaigning at the moment. And with 2024, obviously this is America, it's also going to be in England as well. What are you going to believe? What are you going to believe moving forward?
Well, we don't get nearly as many smear campaigns as the Americans do. But you're right. I didn't think about that. It's going to be used to both amplify people's messages, because you're obviously able to use AI to duplicate your own voice as well as your opponents. And then if you wanted to have you saying a lot more stuff than you generally would be able to. So it's going to be on both sides of the coin. We're going to get amplifications of their own, and we're going to get bigger smear campaigns against their opponent.
But how are they gonna police this? This is the thing I don't get. Like, we can go to a tool, any clone voice tool, get an interview from Trump or Biden or anyone like that, get the tool to learn the voice, and then get him to say anything and just put it on the internet. And then you don't even have to say, "Oh, this is Biden." You just know the voice, or "This is Trump." You just know the voice.
Yep. Well, they're doing it with Joe Rogan right now, because he's the one that's easiest to extort, because obviously his voice holds so much power in marketing. So people were putting out fake adverts using his voice against supplement pills that he doesn't have any association with. So imagine that in politics.
That happened to the money saving expert guy, Martin Lewis, as well. I'm watching interviews with him, and he's obviously going to like court. He's getting like lawyers involved, and good on him, because this cloning of voice is, I think, is going to be like a really, really serious issue. I know people talk about deep fakes, but cloning voices, and we'll talk about some of the bad stuff in cloning voices when it comes to some of the things that we've seen in other episodes. But if we stick to politics, how easy is it to clone other people's voice? And as Charlemagne the God, one of a famous radio presenter, if you don't know him, he said, the truth is irrelevant if the lie is more entertaining. And I always remembered that. And I was like, that's so important when he said that, because what you're going to see is a lot of lies. And if the lie is entertaining, people are gonna kind of ignore the truth. And are we going to find campaigns where they're going to be really focusing on I did not say this, rather than what they actually are campaigning for. Is that what it's going to be about next year?
Trump is so good he could be a stand-up comedian. Yeah.
Actually, you probably did say that, or at least
his ability to just deflect questions like they never existed and make something completely out of thin air, and that becomes the talking point of. So imagine his abilities with AI. Like, it is scary, honestly, because an amplification of anybody's persuasion like that at a level where you don't know who's behind it, because I'm imagining that many of these politicians will essentially outsource this to other people in order to amplify their message rather than actually looking directly behind it themselves. So then you're not going to know sort of generally the intent of that and where it's coming from. And anybody could randomly go viral on Twitter, essentially, just after doing a mid-journey image or any sort of political thing that they managed to make generatively. They could just post it and they could be a nobody and go get millions of likes on Twitter. And that, that's the amplification I'm talking about.
Yeah, I just feel that, it's going to be.
And social media doesn't care if it's true. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
The platforms viral is not true. It doesn't. Virality and true aren't the same thing.
Exactly. And the platforms don't care. They say they do, but I don't know. The actions speak louder than words. Or is it a case of how do you actually police this? Going back to what I just said. Not just from a legal point of view, but from the platforms. How do you stop this? Or how?
Running up to the elections, they may have agreements with these platforms to tone down specific keywords. Anything that's referencing Trump or Biden or anybody that's involved, essentially, they could dampen the overall algorithmic reach, because certain platforms did this with Ukraine and Russia, because a lot of pro-war messages were coming through on the platforms. Then they dampened this, but when and where they do that, because like you said, they're already years ahead of the election doing this, then it's to be seen, I guess.
It definitely is. And getting the general public to do stuff, user generated content or cloning people's voices, that's one thing. But I will not be surprised. In fact, I'll be shocked if political parties and their associates are not doing it. They were going to do it. And all it takes is one person or one party to do something, and then the other party will react. As I said, the social media elections 2008, there was a lot of dirty tricks being played. 2016, I think we see the dirty tricks and also the impact of what happened by using these dirty tricks. Because to be honest, I still think the world is suffering from those dirty tricks. Almost 8 years ago.
Definitely.
2024, it's just inevitable, so what's going to be interesting, and we should definitely talk about it every time we see something, and even people listening, someone set up some form of Twitter or X, whatever it is, feed or any platform, all the dirty tricks, all the dirty AI tricks that you kind of see these political parties are playing, because it's coming, without a doubt, it's coming.
Well, I said earlier that amplifying your message is, and you mentioned this, they bought social media ads back in those older elections, because you could buy ads at that time for very little money to spread your message much wider. But this is going to be the organic content version, because they won't need to essentially buy ads. They'll just have one Twitter profile blow up, reach millions of people. And then how do you stop that versus the ads, which can be more controlled? But just the last little thoughts on that.
It's going to be very, very interesting times. And as Jay-Z once said, in a nutshell, politics as usual.